Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Lead story this evening looks at tourism and the state of play of an industry that enjoyed a record-breaking fiscal year 2023-2024. What's in store for tourism workers in this fiscal cycle? What are the measures being pursued to bring more visitors to Jamaica, to increase the revenues earned from the industry, and to keep more of the tourism dollar here at home in Jamaica? That's the setup. The time is now. Let's start the show. Welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV. My name is George Davis. A pleasure it is to be with you once again. So the Minister of Tourism, Edmund Bartlett, in his capacity as leader of government business in the House of Representatives, closed the sectoral debate in the House on Tuesday. He touched some highlights in his portfolio, along with mentioning some of the big announcements in the other portfolios whose ministers spoke in the sectoral debate. Also looked at some of what the opposition said in the sectoral debate, a sectoral debate which had 18 speakers in total, 11 from the government side and 7 from the opposition side. But the focus today is on what's the state of play in tourism and what's in store for this fiscal year, following on from a very, very impressive, a record-breaking 2023-2024. I said at the top that I wanted to ask about the measures that are being instituted to improve the conditions for tourism workers, an issue that we don't spend enough time on as we get caught up in headlines about revenue from the tourism sector and the number of visitors who come, stop over, and cruise. Very important numbers those are, but it would mean nothing without the workers who grease the wheel of the mill that keeps on churning out these impressive numbers. Also, the issue of airlift we want to address in this program today, and the issue of new linkages that can be fostered, and how we're going to treat with the issue of the big cruise lines now telling the Minister of Tourism that they want to take more products out of Jamaica. That's an issue that will cause consistency of supply, reliability of supply, and the standard of quality to become real matters that we'll have to deal with to ensure that we can meet the exacting standards. So again, that's an extension of the setup for the discussion that we're about to have this evening. The Minister of Tourism, Edmund Bartlett, the MP for East Central St. James, he joins me now. Good evening, Minister.
Good evening, George, and thank you very much for inviting me to join your program this evening.
Excellent. You're most welcome, sir. Are you in Jamaica or are you somewhere else?
No, I'm at home here in Kingston.
I hear you, sir.
I will soon be somewhere else because we have to continue the task of building the resilience of our market against disruptions such as Beryl and other,
yes,
exogenous shocks
everywhere you ask, Minister, people say, well, tourism dodged the Beryl bullet. You know that the communities in the southernmost part of the island, they got it full on. But tourism, we understand, well, except for Lover's Leap and some of the community tourism efforts in that part of the island, got the hit. But be that as it may, what you announced in the House yesterday insofar as what the affected MPs where they can turn to for funds in the immediate term to assist with tourism-related damage in their constituencies. Can you just recap what you said?
Well, in terms of what we were able to do from our limited budget in tourism was to repurpose just about 30 a little over 30 constituencies or so in which, and then for another 33, just about, I would say, a little over $100 million to be distributed. 2 million for the constituencies that were worst hit on the South Coast, where the tourism assets there were damaged, but more so where the community tourism, the stakeholders reside and operate. I went to look at them myself. Actually, I went to Little Ochi and I saw the situation there. I drove all the way through, Full Savannah, Junction, Top Hill, all the way into Treasure Beach, and then to Black River and to Holland Bamboo. And all those areas that are important for us in terms of the tourism experiences that we offer. And so we have decided to allow the MPs along that stretch primarily to be able to repurpose $2 million from their spruce up allocation for recovery activities in the area. Now, we are also looking at a package from the tourism linkage network to assist the small and medium enterprises. We already have $1 billion at the Exim Bank that we have on lent to over 450 small businesses. We also have some 1,800 small farmers that are connected on the Alex platform that are supplying goods to the tourism sector. So all of these we have an interest in, along with the Ministry of Agriculture, of course, and the other ministries that are working with them. So we will be finalizing within the next few days a package with the Exim Bank, which will allow for a moratorium on some of the loans that they now have. That is those who receive the damage, and then also to look at perhaps extending what they have now to enable them to recover faster. And to be able to, because the good thing about tourism is that the recovery tends to be very swift. So once you're fixed up and ready, the dollar comes in immediately.
On that point, Minister, for several farms we saw in the southern part of the island where greenhouses were erected, and in those greenhouses the leafy vegetables and so forth that are sent to the hotels. Please explain to me what fall off, if any, will accrue as a result of farmers who plant these crops and sell them directly to the hotels, the fall off, if any, from the damage to their greenhouses and to their farms in general, as part of the elaborate linkages that you have between tourism and agriculture?
Well, I think the fall off is going to be noticeable. The capacity to perhaps bring goods in quickly on a short-term basis to bridge the gap, will enable, I think, the industry to go on with a minimum of fallout. But certainly in terms of the earnings of these farmers, there will be an issue. But the good news is that the Ministry of Agriculture and the Minister was very forthcoming in terms of working with these hydroponic farmers to enable a very fast recovery for them, and so that their hydroponic farms can be brought back into operation as soon as possible. Then we also had the issue of the poultry industry and the impact of that, eggs and so on. So we know that the impact would be more in terms of the local retention. I know that I've been focusing heavy on local retention to the extent that I spent more than 15 minutes of the presentation yesterday on the supply logistics hub that we are trying to create to ensure a sufficiency of supply, both to meet our local demand in the tourism sector as well as the cruise demand, and to be able to do some level of nearshoring to our neighbors in the Caribbean.
When you spoke of
this is a very critical, George, area, and a lot of people do believe that tourism is centered around hotels and accommodation, and the attractions that we have. But there are wider areas of economic activity around tourism that is critical for us to tap into, and the supply side has answer to the real economic growth for Jamaica.
Let me ask you directly then. So for those farmers, the hydroponic farmers you mentioned, I spoke to a couple who've basically lost everything. The greenhouse is now a mass of twisted metal. They have to start from scratch, and the figure to start is big, the dollar figure. Is it that the ministry, through the facilitations it has, whether through TPDCO or otherwise, can lend a helping hand for them to get off the ground again? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying that the focus for us is going to be more on the small and mini micro stakeholders. But I'm satisfied that the Ministry of Agriculture, working with these farmers, are in line to get them back up and running as fast as possible. And I think that I was very, very heartened by the statement made by our Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Floyd Green, and certainly what our Prime Minister has been doing in particular to give support to the agricultural sector. And so the greenhouses, I have great confidence that they will come back and quickly.
Yeah.
Now, there's something else, George, that's happening, is that more people are being inserted in the supply side now.
Yes.
And I note with great interest a certain acquisition, which was announced a few days ago,
Yes.
which would create a mega potential for supplies
Yes.
of tourism goods and services.
You're talking the CPJ sale, the CPJ
Exactly.
sale of that asset, yes.
Absolutely. And we're going to be talking with not just them, but all the big purveyors in Jamaica now.
Yes.
We're going to be meeting with them shortly to look at what the aggregate demand for tourism goods, particularly agricultural goods and then manufactured goods
Yes.
are.
Yes.
And to look also down the road. Remember, we said that 20,000 new rooms are coming in the next 10 to 15 years. Now, we have to build capacity to be able to absorb that demand.
Yes.
And first of all, we need to quantify the demand itself.
Yes.
What 20,000 new rooms will mean, for agricultural supplies, for manufactured goods, and also for services.
Let me ask you this before we get to the break, Minister. Let's put this one in before we get to the break. When you said in your presentation that the major cruise lines have said to you that they want to take more Jamaican goods, and of course these goods have to meet exacting standards, you have to have reliability of supply and so forth. What are the things that they are interested in, and what now is our capacity to supply?
Right. So they are interested in agricultural supplies, primarily your winter vegetable types, that is your lettuce, cabbage, tomatoes, fresh fruits. They're also interested in beverage, a lot of the beverage that we have. And forgive me for calling any name here, but take Red Stripe Beer, for example. This is one of the beverage that is in demand in the area. So we could talk about that, and of course our rums and our coffee and other supplies or condiments that we have. These are the primary areas of concern that we can deliver on for the cruise. We can't do very much in terms of livestock yet,
Yes.
in terms of meats and so on, but certainly we can do a lot more with eggs and poultry and so on. So the potential is there, but I want to go a little step further.
Quickly, Minister, before we get to the break, yes.
Yes, it's not only what we produce here,
Yes.
but what we could bring as raw materials and then
Make finished goods out of them, yeah.
And therefore boost the supplies that we have to meet the demands.
Hear you on
and
that.
That's that I want to spend some time on, not in this show, of course, but with the team that is now working at the logistics center that we want to create. It's
Yes.
about that. It's about bringing goods from it, unfinished goods, half-finished goods, complete them, finish, add value, create jobs.
Yes.
And then repackage and export.
Hear you on that. Ed Bartlett, the tourism minister, is with me. We take a break, we come back and continue the discussion here. Lead Stories, CVM TV.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45. What's your story? What's your sign? We're dreamers. Don't care what other people say. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive. We come alive. We come alive. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive.
Hi, I'm Celine Gordon, host of Holy Road.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy John Mark Wigan, host on the show Holy Road. Listen, people need to know what's happening in the churches and in ministry in all of Jamaica. It's an absolute blessing. We're really excited to share this.
Tune in to CVM. See it happen.
Cruise ships back in the dock. The birds are landing on the tarmac with passengers excited to experience brand Jamaica. The hotel rooms are occupied. It's almost as if the country didn't just experience a Category 4 hurricane. The tourism industry, like Teflon, showing its resilience. The minister says the country welcomed nearly 150,000 stopover and cruise visitors in the 11-day period following the passage of Hurricane Beryl. And there are even more on the way, with all roads leading to Catherine Hall for the world-famous Reggae Sumfest, projected to bring in some $20 million in earnings. Shortly after, party-goers from across the world will converge on the western coastal resort town of Negril for Dream Weekend. Increased traffic and new cashy realities for both our local airports in Kingston and Montego Bay collectively, generating revenue amounting to 30 billion Jamaican dollars. It's party time in JA, with tourism numbers bringing smiles to the faces of the sector, while the ministry is also pivoting to diversify Jamaica's tourism products and key markets. Big announcements are being made for the Latam connections, with the largest airline in Latin America set to resume non-stop flights between Lima, Peru and Montego Bay, Jamaica on December 1. So, with tourism already raking in earnings of $4.38 billion, a 9.6% increase over the previous fiscal year, despite the passage of a major storm system, what more can we learn about resilience and recovery from the hospitality sector?
Thank you, Curlin, and thank you, Jonathan, for putting that together. Minister, so there we had that package just showing how quickly we've managed to recover from Beryl. Here's the thing, though. I note that, well, you've made no secret of the fact that, look, North America is in a good place now, where the two big source countries, United States and Canada, are concerned. You have made no mistake of your tilt to Latin America, and Latam coming in with airlift, and you're opening up that portal to visitors from that part of the world. How long do you think it will take for our efforts to bring in significant visitor numbers from Latin America to bear fruit, based on where you are now?
Right. So on the 18th of August, we go to Brazil to start discussing a timeline for the Azul airline to fly to Jamaica from one of the northern cities of Brazil. And that, we hope, will materialize for our first flight coming in the winter of 24-25. We already have, as you know, Copa, and Copa is like our workhorse in South America. So with Copa, now Latam starting the 1st of December, and Azul in line. The 4th would be Avianca and Colombia. And we're having that discussion with them also in September, where what we want to do now is to tie up the airlift arrangements for South America within the next 6 months. And so by 25, 26, you're going to be seeing, perhaps close to 100,000 visitors coming from South America. And then we move on to our initial target, which is really 250,000. So we think that Brazil has enormous capacity, as you know. And then, of course, there is Chile, and there's Argentina and Colombia. And I started talking about Avianca for half a minute. But the real value of Avianca to us is not necessarily them, but the connectivity that they offer us with Emirates Airline.
Yes.
So we've had discussions with Emirates who are already selling Jamaica, destination Jamaica. But they haven't been able to put a flight together for any of us in the Caribbean as yet.
Yes.
But the next best thing is that they are now flying to Bogota. So what we are tidying up with them is a code sharing arrangement with Avianca. And
the minister's connection froze just for the minute there, but he's talking about the plan to conquer Latin America. LATAM, the largest airline out of Latin America, confirming airlift to Jamaica, and how these things work. It's not just to sign an agreement for the plane to come, because the plane is not going to come if there isn't the passenger load to put on the planes. So the minister is saying that based on the work that has been put in, the agreements that have been signed, the agreements that are still being finessed to in negotiations to agreement, we are poised to be seeing 100,000 visitors out of Latin America by 2025, 2026, closer to our goal as we get to look to the goal of 250,000 passengers from that side. Minister, are you back?
yes,
Right. I wanted to ask you before you broke. I wanted to ask you before you go. You broke off. Most of these countries in Latin America, the average persons don't require visas to travel to Jamaica, do they?
Right. So that's one of the advantages of South America. But the difficulty is the yellow fever situation, and we have to manage that with the Ministry of Health, and because we have to protect the health security of our country and in fact, by extension, the region. So we have to work through that. But I think that the passengers who come to us, by and large, all have their yellow fever vaccination certificate. So, we have, yes, the difficulty sometimes is just that when they arrive, the long lines for you to...
Quick question, Minister.
We're going to find a mechanism, of course, with that to deal with it. Perhaps the C5 can help us with the technology now that we apply.
Quick one for you before we get to the tourism workers, because I really want to get to that. So are you forecasting already that the average visitor from Latin America who comes through the portals that you're trying to open and concretize, will those visitors be, you think, of the same income profile as those from North America, from Canada and the US, with the capacity to spend?
Well, the thing about the emerging middle class is that it does have the capacity to spend, but it is spending more intelligently. And so it is spending on the type of experiences that gives great value. And value and price, as you know, are good friends. So you don't have to worry too much about price points when the value is there. Jamaica continues to excel in that area. Our price points are not the cheapest in the region, as you know, because of the high value that we.
Yes.
So we are comfortable that, you see, the demographics that would come into us initially from South America are usually middle class and above.
Excellent. All right.
With affordability.
But my tourism workers now, Minister, I don't have a relative who's a tourism worker, but for some reason, I think a lot about tourism workers because I know how hard they work, I know their value to the industry, and I know that all we're building, all you and your team have done, means nothing if the workers aren't involved, motivated, and can, as Jamaicans would say, see their way working in the tourism industry. You've announced several things for tourism. You've introduced the first tourism pension, and now the issue of housing for the workers. I wanted to update me on what the building of the houses for the tourism workers, where that is at this point.
Right. So, George, I think central to our whole strategy for human capital development in the industry has been a three-pronged approach. One of training, certification, upskilling, and to enable the workers of the industry to be able to add value at every step of the way in the service delivery. So giving them the opportunity to be certified enables us in time to be able to classify them. And then to be able to classify, you can remunerate according to classification. And that will change significantly the whole labor market arrangements insofar as the perceived low wage, low salary situation in tourism is concerned. The second is to build out the social component of their employment arrangements. And the pension, of course, you know, we've done hard work on that and give them a world-class pension plan, which indeed is unique to the world. We are getting calls from elsewhere to ask us to show them how this best practice is put together for countries all across the world. We so far can report that over $3 billion is in the fund, and we have pretty close to 10,000 members and registered and applying members. So we are excited about that one moving faster, because it really has potential, not just to enable a social security safety net for the workers, but also to create perhaps the largest pool of low-cost funds in the country for on lending and for the development of infrastructure and many other capital applications across Jamaica. So we are excited about that. The economists will tell you that growth is assured when your domestic savings becomes your investment.
Yes.
And so we're excited about that prospect.
And in the minute you have the housing